So, welcome everyone. Welcome from Switzerland. Welcome to all over the world, wherever our participants are joining at the moment. One or two housekeeping items. The session will be recorded as usual, and we will send around the link to the recording in case you have to drop off early. We will send out the link to the recording, probably later today or tomorrow. I encourage you to use the Q&A section of Teams. If you do have any questions, please let us know, and I will make sure Courtney will help us with your question. So I would like to introduce Courtney McNamara. Okay, I was right that it will not work. Sorry for that. Courtney is Vice President of Product Management and is with ProcessUnity for over 6 years and focuses on user experience and developing rich features to meet customers' evolving needs around third-party risk management. Her passion around creating meaningful products and solutions has led to development of several data-driven technologies that provide users with security information to better protect their organizations. Courtney holds degrees from Georgetown in English and Psychology and a master's degree from the University of Denver in International Human Rights. And this already leads me to my first question. This is quite an interesting combination of topics you've been dealing with during your studies. How did you end up in a software company doing product management? This is quite an interesting journey, I can imagine.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for that introduction. And yeah, I agree. It's, I think, a bit of an unconventional career path, but I think the through line for me has always just been helping people solve complex problems. So whether it was, helping build educational infrastructure in South Sudan or helping farmers mitigate climate change in Southeast Asia, a lot of that experience led me to find that these complex problems were best addressed using data and data-backed decision making. So that plus kind of the people component that I've also always liked to bring with me in any field that I'm studying has led me to product management, where I get to interface with people directly, understand their problems, and devise creative solutions. The cybersecurity space I particularly enjoy because it has a global relevance. It is relying on data, and spaces like ProcessUnity allow us to flex a really innovative solution and approach to those. So I think it's been a good blend of all of my various interests and backgrounds. So very excited to see where this conversation takes us. And it's opportunities like this that, keep the day-to-day very interesting. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. So let's already dive into our topic beyond the questionnaire, which is one approach to tackle third-party risk management. Let's start with the traditional questionnaire approach and then discuss what comes beyond. What are the challenges customers are facing with the questionnaire approach, the typical inside-out approach?
Yeah, I think in my experience, the questionnaire itself has limitations both as a data collection instrument as well as serving as a sufficient indicator of due diligence. So we obviously have run into clients that their due diligence process is to have an artifact on file so they can check a box and say that they asked the questions and they have those answers saved. And if that is sufficient for your program's requirements, then I think today's topic may not necessarily resonate as deeply with your program as it may with others who want to be a little bit more dynamic and proactive with that. So for the dynamic and proactive approach, the questionnaire, the inside out questionnaire, is tough for quite a few reasons. One is just getting the data in the first place. We know third parties are over asked and fatigued around these assessments, so it's hard for them sometimes to engage or work at a pace that is appropriate for your business and what your internal stakeholders might be expecting. And then even once you do get them to engage, you have human error throughout the whole process. So you don't know if the integrity of the answers are correct. Again, the speed of what you're getting those answers may not be appropriate for the decisions you're trying to make. And then I think the biggest one that we are trying to solve is that these assessments are usually done on an annual or biannual basis. So it really ends up being this static snapshot in time, which is hard to reconcile with the fact that it's being used to address questions or issues in a very rapidly evolving landscape. So we're trying to really help not only get the data better and faster in a more trustworthy way, but then also helping our users use the data to gain actionable insights. And I think it's not going to be just about accessing the data, but really leveraging that data in the most effective way possible is going to be
Mm.
a recurring theme throughout today's discussion.
This makes sense. So before we talk about how to use the data, let's first of all start with the topic. What is typical data the risk management teams would like to have or need to have to be able to manage risk? So what is the typical data that the teams are trying to get?
I think at a most basic level, the inside out data is invaluable. Don't get me wrong. I do not think questionnaires should be phased out of third party risk management, but it needs to be supplemented with other outside in data like threat intelligence or external scanning tools.
Mhm.
And I also think you want to look beyond just a singular domain. Like I said, this is a complex and multifaceted problem that we're trying to not only address, but get in front of. So you really want to look at multi risk domain data however you're procuring that, whether it's through your assessments or through these external sources. And in my mind, that creates what I've been calling a 360-degree view of risk. So you can really understand how your vendor sits and how that vendor's posture can impact your organization based on your relationship,
Mhm.
looking at a variety of different vectors of their risk posture. So it really needs to be a combination. There's not a singular silver bullet that's going to guarantee you security in this space.
So if you talk about risk domains, well, what are typical examples? Can you give like 3 or 4 examples of risk domains
Yeah,
that have to be covered?
definitely. I mean, I think a lot of it depends on the industry that you're operating in and the relationship that you're examining through your vendor. But obviously, the cyber is a big one. Privacy is
Hmm.
getting continually more
Hmm.
important, business resiliency, financial risk. And I think a lot of these get different weights depending on kind of what macro or micro level that you're looking at. So, we have GDPR, we have DORA, we have CCPA. There's a lot of different ones that are helping protect different industries and different
Hmm.
verticals.
Hmm.
But there's some of those overarching ones, like I said, security, cyber, privacy, business resiliency. These are things that if they get uh, implicated in an event, you can see really drastic impacts to your business for sure.
Yeah, and then on the third party side, yeah, it makes it even more complex because there are that many people you have to talk to, you have to get answers from. So it's also for the third parties, it's really challenging to get proper answers to questionnaires. I agree. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
And let's dive into what the risk teams are doing with the data. So what should risk teams do in response to the emerging threats? What can they do with the data they receive, for example, from ProcessUnity or from their own questionnaires?
Yeah, so like I said, it's not just about accessing the data, but understanding how to interpret and leverage that data effectively. So we really want to make sure that our users are able to both collect and analyze that data and then use it to enhance the resilience to existing cybersecurity threats, emerging threats, and really just continually adapt to, like I said, the evolving threat landscape that they're working within. So things that are going to help you do that. Yes, the inside out data, like I said, is going to give you a good base on understanding that third party's risk posture, but you want to continually monitor them, use threat
Mhm.
detection, and help those ongoing data sources help you prioritize your vendor in the event, in the wake of an event. So then you might need to follow up with some emergency assessments or other incident response tactics. But if you have a third party ecosystem of hundreds or even thousands of vendors, you're really going to need to be able to effectively triage those vendors. So you need to not only identify who is at risk, where those risks lie, but what sort of mitigation activities you need to do to uh, remediate any risks that those have implicated you in and prioritize those activities. Otherwise, you're just going to drown in the response effort and you're probably going to encounter the next event before you even wrap up the previous one.
I totally agree. Yeah. So you already mentioned threat intelligence and all the other and outside out scannings from outside. So what other types of data does ProcessUnity provide for the
Mhm.
customers, or what other types of data really make sense to really get this 365 or 360 degree view on your vendors.
Yeah, we can do another 5 degrees of visibility. I don't see how that would hurt, but
Yeah, why not? It's even better. Yeah.
more is more.
Yeah.
So I think one of the strengths of the exchange data is that our assessment is based on a standardized data set that have allowed us to create a standardized questionnaire that have allowed us to create a standardized data set, which allows us to do some really powerful analytics that will allow you to compare your entire third-party portfolio within itself, as well as compare it to others on the exchange and compare it to others in the industry.
Mhm.
So the inside-out data that we have in and of itself is differentiated from any other inside-out data collection you might encounter. On top of that analysis, we've been able to do quite a few things, like provide automated risk profiles by creating essentially a new data set of what we've formerly called predictive risk data. So in the event that your third party isn't engaged, isn't willing to answer an assessment, or is just slow in providing that data, we've been able to effectively model what we think that third party's risk posture looks like and what the answers to their assessment could be. So that structured data set also allows us to integrate with other data sets that, like I said, we strongly recommend our users rely on a diverse set of data,
Mhm.
so that they can, again, most effectively evaluate their third parties and evaluate those data sets based on that data's ability and relevance to being able to detect, analyze, and mitigate those cybersecurity risks. So long story short, what we help our users to leverage is not only that inside out cache of data, the automated risk data that we've built on top of that structured data set, but we've also partnered with dark web monitoring,
Mhm.
security scanning, external scanning tools, threat intelligence, and attack surface questionnaires as well. And then most recently, we've been modeling a tool around the NIST CVE database, which I'm sure
Mhm.
many of the people on the call know, provides that critical context for threat response and can additionally be integrated with other data sources. So that's why it's been so effective as an aggregate of data sources into the tooling that we've been developing for some of our users, and allowing you to kind of pull the most appropriate lever for whatever the context of the question that you're asking about that third party or about that portfolio is. So again, you can look at this multifaceted problem through multiple lenses and use the aggregate of these data sources to have a really kind of comprehensive understanding of where you need to direct your attention and your resources.
Okay, you already mentioned and you already, yeah, going in this direction. The overall goal is for your customers and for the people on our call today to be really proactive
Mm-hmm.
instead of reactive. So not waiting for the breach that comes either via the third party or you're affected by a breach in the third party. So how can you use the data to really be proactive and address threats before something happens?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when I have discussions like this, it makes it seem like we're very anti-questionnaire, and we're not.
Mhm.
I think the questionnaire approach inherently forces our users to be more reactive and respond to incidents after they occur. And being proactive is going to require a shift away from that more traditional mindset to a more forward-looking approach that anticipates, prevents, and mitigates threats before they manifest. So again, to help achieve this, we want to combine those multiple sources of intelligence so that you have the continuous monitoring, you have the nuanced look at all the different facets of your third party's risk posture, and you have the alerting in real time. There's also things like threat hunting and other things that you could do to be a little bit more proactive in that space, but it just really depends on what the objectives of your program are and where you see kind of your biggest indicators of risk lying. We talked about multi-risk domains, so
Mhm.
making sure that you're not just focusing on cyber, but looking at other non-cyber risks as leading indicators as well, and making sure that you're taking this third party's risk posture as a whole and not just kind of taking individual slices of the pie that might be missing the forest for the trees, so to speak. And then we know that assessments focus a lot on the individual third party, and while those evaluations are very important, you really want to make sure you understand your third party portfolio as a whole and
Mhm.
understand where your portfolio wide weaknesses are. I think this will help understand where your risks as a first party lie and help you identify some first party mitigation opportunities as well. So I think all of those things combined will help you reduce, the likelihood of a successful attack and minimize the impact when those attacks inevitably occur.
So let me quickly summarize. So the idea is really to find the threats in the portfolio in the third parties before something happens, and also have a monitoring part that really get an alert if something happens, to really be able to react quickly. Right? Is it correct?
Exactly. I think it's awareness and then it's triaging really. Because again, if you have these massive third-party portfolios, you're not going to be able to respond to every event. That's just
Yeah.
cost prohibitive and not smart. So
Yeah.
we use a phrase a lot called finding the signal in the noise. So even if you're
Hmm.
getting those proactive alerts, you need to be able to signal which of these alerts is the most meaningful when. And if it's something that's below your radar of criticality, then it's
Hmm.
you might want to have lower level efforts in responding to those
Hmm.
and save, like I said, your primary resources on the ones that are really critical for your organization.
Do you have any real world examples of customers that really use the data and were able to maybe prevent an attack, or yeah, deal with an attack deal with an attack better?
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to avoid using names here, but as our clients get more sophisticated, they start to understand how deep this issue can go and how sophisticated the solution can get. So, not to add another layer to what I've already called a multifaceted problem, but looking beyond just your third party portfolio into their third party. So, what does fourth party data start to tell us?
Mm.
And I mentioned finding a signal in the noise. You can really get over inundated with data from whatever source that you're relying on. And if you're going to add a whole nother degree of data with a fourth or fifth or sixth party portfolio, you're really going to start to drown in that information. So we've built some AI models that allow us to rely on centralized databases and algorithmic modeling to empower companies to scale their cybersecurity defenses effectively against these rapidly evolving threat landscapes by really, again, honing in on what's the emerging threat, who does it apply to, and what is that impact of that application to me. So it's not just, oh, a log4j incident happened. It's
Mm.
who's using log4j. Is that server in the supply chain to the service or product that is relevant to me? And then again, what is the likelihood of that implication to impact me and my organization, and therefore what do I need to do to respond to it accordingly? We can't paint every reaction with the same size paintbrush. We have to kind of use a scalpel, which is a little bit antithetical to the fact that you're also just getting this deluge of information and talking about hundreds or thousands of third parties, but then using a very pinpointed understanding of what the appropriate response tactic is. So using things like automated data and AI powered models will really help you do the computing that human brains just can't do.
Mm.
But the machines do the machine part as far as calculating the data, computing the data, and uh, developing recommendations around what the information that they have, and let the humans do the more kind of heuristic response that is required in
Mm.
this evolving landscape.
Mm. And do you have like a specific event that you can talk about, of course, without names, where people, where customers were really able to react faster and better?
Yeah, I think the most recent one that comes to mind is I'm sure everyone's familiar with the CrowdStrike incident. So we had one client who um, had fourth party implications of the CrowdStrike incident
Hmm.
that they were able to identify very quickly, match those identified fourth parties with the CVE database, and understand where those vulnerabilities lie in relation to themselves. And again, take some of that
Hmm.
first party mitigation activity. So the other thing about being able to find third or fourth party data is then you're also dependent on them to take the action required to help
Hmm.
mitigate what the event was. You don't have control over that. So some of the best things that we can help our clients do is identify the things they do have control over. How do you
Hmm.
protect your own house in addition to asking your third parties to kind of clean up their area of the house as well?
Yeah, and maybe prepare if it's not possible to really get rid of all the risks. You have to prepare. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah. No, get rid of all the risk would be a a nice world, but not one I see coming anytime soon.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about incidents and breaches and all that stuff. So let's talk about that the approach what we usually call shift left. So go
Mhm.
to the due diligence, pre and post contract discussions with third parties. How can you share some best practices using data in this shift left contract
Yeah.
discussions?
Yes. So I think we see a lot of pre-contract activity because that is when our clients have the most leverage over their vendors, right? Nobody wants to lose business over the completion of an assessment or the mitigation of something quick and easy to fix. That said, we do see on our third party side of the exchange a lot of vendor and analyst fatigue with these requests. And then you start to see a degradation of the data or the engagement levels from those third parties because everybody's just kind of tired of doing this redundant and sometimes superfluous work because, again, you can't paint everybody with the same size paintbrush. So we want to help our users have a more sophisticated pre-contract processing of their vendors, help them understand, what the asset inventory of that vendor is, how it gets implicated in the relationship of how you're using that vendor, and then what that vendor's weaknesses, how they line up with your weaknesses, and where you see those biggest gaps and vulnerabilities. So, for example, maybe you have a third party who doesn't have very many very good security protocols or controls in place at all, but he's mowing your lawn or selling you chandeliers.
Mm.
These are not the people that you still need to consider critical third parties
Mm.
because of your relationship and the fidelity of the degree at which you're working with them. So helping users both understand their third party's risk posture and scope the impact of that risk posture to you personally, and then use that to kind of again triage or prioritize who you need to follow up on with
Mhm.
assessments if that is your company's protocol, and use that to prioritize assessment efforts. And we also want to give again more levers for our users to pull a more variety in that kind of ingredients cabinet for what they want to employ with any given relationship. So maybe you need an assessment upfront before contracts can be finalized. Maybe you can say, hey, you're medium criticality or low. Let's assess you at recontract, at resign time. So just giving us a little bit more variety so that you're not getting hit with a wall of assessments, on March 1st or January 1st, whatever it may be. We want to make sure our users really understand what matters when and help them derive a plan based on that is feasible, that is not going to burn out any of your resources, and that is going to lead to information that you're actually able to use and not just throw in a pile because you're already drowning in the big wall of work that you couldn't get done in the first place.
Yeah, it's all about prioritizing. It's all about being more efficient, doing the right stuff, being working smart. So that's
Absolutely.
the approach. Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about AI. So how does ProcessUnity use AI in this whole approach?
Well, AI is everybody's favorite word, and ProcessUnity is no exception to falling in line. But no, we've been able to do some really powerful and frankly very cool things with our AI models that have really helped our users significantly enhance their efficiency, their accuracy, and again the scalability of their programs. So for us, as I mentioned, our structured data set of previously collected inside-out data has allowed us to devise a predictive risk data set that we can fill in the gaps of an assessment of a third party who either isn't responsive or maybe doesn't have all of the accurate information to their questions. So it not only gives us something to supplement third party engagement with, but it gives us something to kind of triangulate that data and trust but verify what the
Mhm.
humans on the other side are telling us about it. Um, in the vein of prioritizing or triaging your third parties by criticality, this data set, this predictive data set also allows us to help you monitor those medium to lower risk third parties. So again, maybe an assessment's not inappropriate is your first engagement with that vendor, maybe monitor them. And then when a signal arises that says, hey, their risk posture changed or something's coming that makes you a little bit more wary of that vendor, then you can go take a more closer look at them. I think the third biggest use case for our AI models recently too is the ability to review third-party evidence faster. So we do offer an
Mhm.
independent evidence review process for some of our assessments, but that is a very arduous task. So this model is using NLP technology to help review the documents that the third party provides, rate the relevance of those documents, the controls that they're supposedly substantiating that they have in place, and provide some feedback to the analyst that says, this document is relevant, here's why we think it's relevant, and here's why we think it's suitable evidence that they do in fact have these controls in place for their organization. So you can start to see that all this is going to yield a lot of dividends for both the third parties and our clients, because it's going to reduce time on manual evaluations. It's going to reduce time on getting initial insight into what their risk posture is in the first place. But these models also help mitigate some of that human aspect of TPRM that I think is a little bit risky right now by providing a consistent and objective output in a risk score as well. And then, as we mentioned, the continuous monitoring is going to help ensure that you have real-time updated scores based on new data. So our models do incorporate not only our inside out data, but some of our external data sources as well. And all of that is working in conjunction to make sure that you know when something happens as quickly as possible. And then that something is incorporated into that score or into that portfolio recommendation or into that risk data point in a way that is the most relevant to you based on the emerging threats or compliance violation, whatever it may be. Because again, just having data for the sake of having data is not actionable. We need to tell you why it matters. What is the so what? So it's the relevance, the scalability, the real time, and the application of how you're going to use that data.
Okay. So we still have some time left. So I will encourage again our attendees to raise some questions, get some feedback, some comments. I will maybe wait half a minute to let the people raise their questions. That don't seem to be that many questions, so
we just covered it all.
We covered it all. Everyone is happy. Everyone solved all the third-party risk problems. We can go for Thanksgiving. And have a really good time. So thank you, Courtney, for being with us, for sharing all the insights with us. To all of our attendees, if you want to learn more about ProcessUnity, if you have any questions, please reach out to Andy, to Dominic, or to myself. We are more than happy to help and answer anything. There is a question. Perfect. So you just have to wait. Perfect. So Orf, I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Can you please explain more about how to engage non-responsive vendors?
Yeah, that is
probably something everyone is struggling with, right?
Yeah, not to seem insensitive, but I find third parties are most responsive when they start to realize that by not engaging, it's going to have a negative impact on their reputation and or their bottom line. So if we've enabled our customers, their customers, to make decisions without their engagement, things suddenly start to look a little bit different from them. The cards that they previously held are suddenly a little bit weaker. And so our AI models and our automated risk profiles is what is allowing our customers to confidently make decisions on those third parties, whether or not that third party shows up to the table and participates in that conversation or not. And that can have a very uncomfortable effect on the third parties. So as much as I don't really love, the carrot stick dynamic, I think third parties and their input is extremely valuable to the exchange, to the dynamic of TPRM as a whole. Sometimes, you kind of have to hit them where it hurts. And if our customers are able to decide whether or not to proceed forward with a contract process with them, and based on information that they didn't have a hand in firsthand informing, usually that piques their interest enough to say, wait, I want to have a voice in this conversation, and I want to influence the final decision that our customers are making. I also think having comparisons, having a competitive analysis across our industry is really important. It's about your peers kind of keeping you accountable and upholding that highest watermark for each other, and kind of, instead of a race to the bottom, a race to the top, right? And if you look like the weakest amongst your class, you're going to realize the impact that's going to have to your business. And I think you're going to be more motivated to not only improve your risk posture, but then kind of brag about it and make sure everybody knows that you're comparable to the best in class in your space and that you can be trusted as a worthwhile vendor.
Yeah. And maybe I can also share a discussion we had with one of our customers who was also yeah, targeted by many of his customers, filling out the questionnaires, and basically the best or the most valuable discussion we had with this customer was that if they fill out the ProcessUnity questionnaire, they can go to their other
Mm.
customers and tell them, okay, here's our ProcessUnity questionnaire. Take it. It has a lot of valuable information. We put a lot of effort in there, and they could basically reduce the effort on their side. So it's not only having a negative impact for the third party. In this case, it was even a positive impact, and this is really what was really important for our customer, that really could reduce the effort for filling out their questionnaires or their customers' questionnaires.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that is a huge overarching theme for our
Yeah,
product team is developing third-party value because like I said, they really are kind of the power engine to the exchange. We need them to feel valued. We need them to get value from the exchange so
yeah,
that they continue to deliver value to our customers. So we are really aiming at making the ProcessUnity questionnaire the last questionnaire third parties ever have to fill out. One with the one-to-many model of the
yeah,
exchange, but also the one-to-many model of the questionnaire to other frameworks. So you could fill out the ProcessUnity questionnaire, but effectively use it to answer requests for NIST, requests for SIG, requests for really any other standard industry framework that your customers may need. So it really reduces that additional effort going
yeah.
forward. Um, and then, like I mentioned, first party risk analysis as well. It's very helpful to know where your risks lie and how that
Hmm.
compares to others in your space and what you can be doing about it to most efficiently and effectively help improve your own risk posture for your own sake and for the sake of your partnerships.
Yeah. And there's another question. Perfect. So again, Orf is asking. I'm seeing tools analyzing artifacts such as ISO 27001, SOC 2 type 2, etc. Do you see these as becoming the de facto requirements for critical enough vendors as opposed to questionnaires?
I think the tough part about using those as the kind of default documents in lieu of questionnaires, obviously they're very valuable. There's a lot of information in them, but the lack of structure to those
Hmm.
documents makes it difficult to really interpret and analyze them very quickly. And as I mentioned before, you without that structured data, you lose the comparability across others in your portfolio or others in their industry. So while there is a great depth of information there, it's I think a little bit harder to turn that information into actionable
Hmm.
insights. So I think the one great thing about our AI model is the NLP's ability to interpret a SOC or an ISO and map that back to our questions and map that back to, the MITRE framework
Hmm.
or whatever even if you're uploaded a custom framework for your organization, we can help you identify the relevance of the answers within that SOC or that ISO to what your organization is actually hoping to leverage for that vendor.
Yeah. And we have a lot of discussion with our customers on some of them really say, okay, if the vendor provides a certificate, we're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Then typically our answer on this one is just, okay, what does it help? Where are the actionable where is the actionable information about having a certificate or don't having a certificate? You might be much more secure without a certificate compared to another vendor that has a certificate. So I totally agree that the depth and the structure of data is really important to get actionable results from all the topics.
Yeah, and those certificates I think are a good baseline. They
Yeah,
show a lot of due diligence on the third party side, but these uh, malevolent actors aren't staying static in their approaches, right?
yeah,
So if they're continuing to evolve their attack techniques, then we need to continuously evolve both how we're identifying those techniques and how we're responding to them. So I
yeah,
think it's a good jumping off point, but I don't think it's something that you can rest on forever.
yeah, yeah. It shows that you're dealing with the topic, but it doesn't give
Exactly.
any insights that you can work with as a customer. I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well said.
Okay. Any other questions? I give it maybe another 20 seconds. Maybe we get another question.
I know we covered a lot.
Yeah.
It can get kind of dense. So obviously, if questions arise, you step away from this and think of something. We could talk about this all day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Always
Okay.
available.
So thank you, Courtney, again. As I already mentioned at the beginning, we will send out the link to the recording later today or tomorrow. This was our last cybovent in 2024. So yeah, it's almost a little bit early to really wish a Merry Christmas, but kind of Christmas is approaching quite quickly. But stay tuned for any new events in 2025. We already start our planning session, and yeah, have a great afternoon. Have a great morning if you're in the US. Courtney or other participants, I don't know where they're coming from. And yeah, thank you for joining. And yeah, have a great day, afternoon, morning, whatever. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.